In the shrouded mists of history, a war began whose echoes still resonate today. This tale begins in the aftermath of World War II, with Korea split sharply at the 38th parallel. To the north, a government molded by Soviet influence and communist ideology. To the south, a regime leaning towards the democratic and capitalist ideals of the Western powers. This stark division, more than just a line on a map, was a front line of clashing worldviews. This division set the stage for a conflict that would draw the world's superpowers into a fierce and unforgiving confrontation. June 25, 1950, marked the day when tensions escalated into open warfare. On this fateful morning, the North Korean army, equipped and emboldened by Soviet tank divisions, launched a sudden and overwhelming invasion into South Korea. This unanticipated aggression caught the South Korean forces off guard, leading to rapid territorial losses. The North Koreans, using blitzkrieg tactics, advanced relentlessly, pushing the boundaries further south with each passing day. The world watched in alarm as the peninsula was engulfed in conflict. Within days, the United Nations, recognizing the gravity of the situation, passed a resolution condemning the invasion. This resolution called upon member states to provide military assistance to repel the North Korean advance. The United States, led by President Truman, quickly committed naval and air support, marking the beginning of a significant international military intervention. As the North Korean troops advanced, they captured key cities, including Seoul, driving the front line towards the Pusan perimeter. This rapid advancement of North Korean troops nearly pushed the South Korean forces to the brink of collapse. Enter General Douglas MacArthur, a man whose bold decisions would turn the tide of war. In September 1950, MacArthur orchestrated the Incheon landing, a daring amphibious assault that would dramatically alter the course of the Korean War. This high-risk operation aimed to regain the South Korean capital of Seoul and sever the North Korean army's supply lines. The Incheon landing, executed with precision, proved to be a masterstroke. UN forces, catching the North Korean troops off guard, successfully recaptured Seoul within days. This victory was not just strategic but also symbolic, boosting the morale of United Nations forces and the South Korean populace. Following this success, UN troops pushed northward with renewed vigor. Their objective was clear: drive the North Korean forces back across the 38th parallel and up to the borders of China. However, as the UN forces advanced, the dynamics of the conflict began to shift. As UN troops neared the Yalu River, the unforeseen involvement of Chinese forces added a new dimension to the war. The war's ferocity dimmed to a cold impasse, as both sides dug in along the 38th parallel once more. As the calendar pages turned from 1951 to 1953, the Korean peninsula was ensnared in the grueling embrace of trench warfare, much like the bloody stalemates of the First World War. No man's land was littered with barbed wire and landmines, a grim testament to the deadlock. Behind the scenes, the gears of diplomacy slowly ground forward. The arrival of President Dwight D. Eisenhower in the White House brought a new urgency to the proceedings. Eisenhower, a seasoned military leader, understood the costs of prolonged conflict and pushed for a resolution that would avoid further escalation and potentially nuclear war. On July 27, 1953, after 2 years of fierce negotiations and relentless fighting, the belligerents signed the Korean Armistice Agreement. This pivotal document established the demilitarized zone, a buffer stretching across the peninsula, ostensibly a sword turned into a plowshare. Though the guns fell silent, the armistice was not a peace treaty, leaving the peninsula in a tense ceasefire that lingers to this day. The Korean War, often called the Forgotten War, left indelible marks on the world stage. It began amidst the rising tensions of the Cold War era, a stark manifestation of the global struggle between communism and democracy. The war erupted in 1950, when North Korean forces, backed by the Soviet Union and China, invaded the South, aiming to reunify Korea under communist rule. This led to a swift response from the United Nations, primarily driven by the United States, which saw the conflict as a critical front in the fight against communism. The war was marked by a series of dramatic swings: initial advances by the North, a bold counterattack at Incheon by UN forces, and the entry of Chinese troops which pushed the battle lines back and forth across the Korean peninsula. Eventually, the war ground to a stalemate, leading to the 1953 armistice that created a divided Korea, a division that persists to this day. As the shadows of the Korean War stretch long and deep, its lessons remain crucial in understanding not just the past, but also the complexities of modern global relations.